Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the DFS 5-Pack Backup channel. If you haven't done it yet, take your pretty little finger and hit that red button that says subscribe. We were just kind of discussing, keep both channels going when the other one comes back. We'll probably keep this one. We'll have more plans, but you talked about getting into more sports betting, and maybe we'll run that one over here. So more stuff in the works. Either way, hit that red button that says subscribe. Welcome back from Florida, Mr. Bellman. It feels like everybody. I was just out with a buddy last night. He's going to Florida next week. My kids and their mom just got back from Florida. You were in Florida. Everybody's going to Florida but me. What the heck's going on here?
I don't know. I mean, I love it down there, obviously, as you know. It sucks to be back. We were only there for like 2 days, and one of the days was cut pretty short because of our flight on Friday, but it is what it is. Always happy to be home, man. And the biggest thing about being back home is seeing the dog. And I know you know how that feels.
I can understand that one. Anyways, guys, get over to Overlay and try to win yourself some money. This jackpot is sitting right now at 14.8, I think it is. Be prepared for this to go over 15K, like as soon as tomorrow. And just keep shoving your dollars in there until somebody wins it. It's got to happen eventually. Like you said, it may never get this big ever again because this website continues to grow and grow and grow, which it's doing. They've been partnering with other people and continuing to grow and grow and grow. Like, it may never happen like this again. So try to win it. It's going to be a huge payday for somebody one of these days.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if you count the top 10% tonight, you win 15 plus K if you go 12-0 tonight. And it's like you talk about a lot. It's certainly not easy. Like last night, I finally found my way into the top 10%. I went 8-4-1, and that was enough to cash. It's the first time I had cashed in forever, but still, now I'm back in the game. I'm taking down this jackpot tonight. No questions asked.
Well, best of luck to you. And that's one of those things that will continue to vary as well. Top 10% gets a nice payday. Like, we're really focused on the jackpot prize right now because that's awesome and it's big and it's huge and somebody's got to win it. But there is, like, it shouldn't be a backup plan to get $180 off a $22 bet. That's a pretty good backup to have.
I was feeling really good this morning knowing I cashed.
Yeah, it's, like I said, sometimes it feels easy. I said when NBA started, I cashed like 4 times in 8 days and I thought it was stealing. And, it hasn't felt quite as easy the last couple of weeks. So we're coming off, again, you love when nights work out weird. It's kind of your contrarian way. Last night was a weird night in the NBA. We just discussed that, weird results all over the place, from individual players to game results. The Bucks hadn't scored under 100 points in almost a full actual regular season. Now back-to-back games scoring under 100 points. The Rockets didn't get rolled, but they lost in New York. Just an odd night.
Bad loss for the Rockets, man. Like the announcers were talking about that after too. I mean, it's fine because it's the regular season, and this is something like it's not like the NFL, right, where it like really hurts you like it does in the NFL. But it's a bad loss, man. Coming into crunch time, the end of the season, like that's a game you got to win.
Absolutely, guys. Okay, so I forgot to put up a deal of the day. I'm emailing our web designer after this to have him switch the MLB package up to regular price. If you get this in time and it's still up there, $69 is a heck of a deal, but that should be changed soon. So I guess hurry over if you want it. In the meantime, we'll have a different deal today tomorrow. But let's take a look at some of the players for today. And I think we both have some interest in the Charlotte Hornets tonight. With Cody Zeller being not a thing anymore and Devontae Graham very unlikely to play, no Malik Monk. There's a lot of value to be had on the Charlotte side of things. Now, Charlotte's a terrible team. That's not even up for discussion. That's just a statement of fact right there. However, you got to kind of like the spot for them today at home, San Antonio, coming to them, tail end of a back-to-back for San Antonio. So I do like a few of the pieces tonight. And before we get into your boy, who I also like, let's start with my guy, Scary Terry Rozier tonight. So he is going to have the ball in his hand more than a teenage boy tonight because there is no Devontae Graham. There is no Malik Monk. Who else is going to try to create shots, run the team, and distribute? So anytime you give me a full allotment of Terry Rozier without having to defer to those other guys who are about as good as he is, he's in a really good spot to put up DFS points. The Spurs D isn't what it used to be. They've been pretty poor against guards all season. He's a point guard with shooting guard eligibility. He works for me in all formats.
Truth be told, I like this game a lot. I like both sides. San Antonio's decimated now. Both their big men are out. Not like Podol's that big of a deal, but he's a big body inside. And then obviously no Aldridge. It takes a lot away from them. Charlotte, no Devontae Graham. I think this game's competitive. I built a dummy line last night, and I plugged Rozier in right away. I mean, he's way too cheap with Graham out. Coggin the machine type at this price point. Even if he hits his floor, I think it's like mid-20s here and doesn't kill you. And that's like the worst case scenario in my mind. High upside, if he's shooting well, 40 plus, no doubt. This is definitely set it and forget it for me as of right now, at least.
Yeah, this is one of those things like if you took me, if I was the house and I had to bet on where I'd put the line on him as far as betting the over the under, it would be in the mid 30s. So I kind of expect him to good opportunity to give out GPP value tonight.
Okay, fair.
All right, next up. So you wanted to talk about Bitch Smack Biombo. Only thing I'll say about Biombo is we've watched Charlotte change what they do with their big men all season long. You've seen Hernan Gomez, Zeller, Biombo, a mixture of all of them. Right now, as the morning progresses, we have no reason not to believe that they're not sticking with Biombo in the starting lineup. However, this pick changes. If something changes and it's Zeller or Hernan Gomez, that's the guy you want to run to because it's just showing coaches buy-in. But we have absolutely no reason to believe tonight they aren't just going to stick what they've been doing the last couple games.
Yeah, and I think it's a good talking point because what you said, if he's not starting, jump off him, and you can obviously go to the other guy who is starting. As far as Biombo goes, if he is starting, though, I mentioned it with Rozier. All of a sudden, San Antonio's decimated inside, man. No Podol, no Aldridge. They're starting Lyles and Eubanks. I used Miles Turner in my utility last night, and he was really good. And he lost like 5 minutes in the first quarter because he bumped heads with Sabonis. I thought he was going to miss the game, but he came back and put up like 30, 60 K points. Really good spot from Biombo, who's just, bigger than anyone San Antonio has inside right now. Going to get a bunch of boards, block shot opportunity. I could easily see him putting up 30 plus here, but I think his floor is around 20. And at 4,300, I mean, I'll take that all day and move on.
The only thing I worry about Biombo is minutes. If he plays, which I believe he will, I have no reason to think otherwise, except for Charlotte's gone back and forth on this all year. I think better than 20. He's a guy that puts up DFS points when given the opportunity. It's only is he in there or not? That's it. Other than that, if this guy plays 25 minutes tonight, which I think we have, I think is a safe bet as of this time this morning, I expect him to give you at least 25 points.
Okay, fair.
So I just want to know that he's starting. If he's starting, lock and load.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we talked this over for a little bit this morning. I'm going to bring up Pascal Siakam of the Toronto Raptors. The big money players on today's slate, especially not knowing about Anthony Davis and LeBron, it's tough. It's actually harder to spend your money today because there's so much value down low. But I don't find crush spots with the upper tiered price types of guys. There's lots of guys in blowout spots today. So Siakam's a guy that I'm really interested in as of right now. And I like him better the more people that are out for Toronto. So if Ibaka doesn't play, I like that. If Van Vliet's out, I like that. I don't need them to be out, but I prefer it if at least one of those guys misses the game. So the Toronto Raptors were red hot until getting stomped by my Bucks, and now they've lost 3 straight games. This is time for your best players to step up. I think Siakam's their best player. If somebody wants to say it's Kyle Lowry, that's a fine argument to make. It doesn't really matter. It's time for your studs to step up. Beat a Phoenix team that just lost to Golden State and Detroit, so we know they're not very good. He's fairly priced. And another thing to like about Siakam, didn't play yesterday, doesn't play tomorrow. So expect him to get his full allotment of minutes unless there's some kind of crazy blowout.
Another guy that was in my dummy line when I made one last night, not because he's a must, like you said, but for all the reasons you mentioned. I expect this to actually be a game, especially if Ibaka and Van Vliet are out. I think Toronto's on a little bit of a skid right now, not playing their best ball. Doesn't help that a couple of their better players are out. Phoenix is, obviously coming off 2 bad losses, but I expect a really good effort from them here. I expect Toronto to win the game, but I don't expect them to get blown out. So I like Siakam a lot because I think the game's competitive. We'll talk about the game, more in total on members only, but I completely agree with your points. There aren't studs that are in must spots by any means tonight. And at 8,700, while he's a little bit pricier than I'd like to spend, he just works here.
Yeah, I'm 100% agree on that. I mean, I would prefer it if he was 8,200, but I think tonight, and again, things can be weird. We talked about it last night. There was all these guards in crush spots, and they were all duds with the exception of Harden, who was still only, pretty good. He wasn't great or anything like that. Probably didn't hurt that Westbrook rolled his ankle about 3 seconds into the game or whatever it might be. It was just a weird night. Tonight, like if Siakam gave me 42 points, I would be happy with that. That's not GPP upside or even close to it, but I don't look at a lot of these studs as like crush spots tonight. Like Jokic could go off, but they're playing the Warriors. Like for all we know, that game's over in the second quarter.
For sure.
So, all right, let's move on. You want to talk about Mr. Alec Burks. No Simmons, no Embiid, no Richardson. Pretty sure AI and Barkley aren't suiting up either. Philly is decimated right now. He's one of the only guys left that can actually create a shot.
Yeah, and the other guy that, it's obviously hard not to look at is Shake Milton, and he's expensive now, up over 6K. So still with no price increase, I think Burks works at 4,400. Hate to use it, love to use it, whatever you want to say. He is the cog in the machine here at this price point. Philly looked good on the road last game against the Clippers. I expect them to still be competitive in this game, even though I expect the Lakers to ultimately win it. More competitive if Anthony Davis doesn't play, obviously. But we've read this book before. We saw this a bunch earlier in the season when he played for Golden State. When he's given the opportunity in minutes and he's like the best offensive player on the court, he can put up DFS numbers. He's not, going to put up 60 here. But if this game is competitive and his three ball's like falling, it's not like out of the realm for him to put up 40 DK points tonight. I'm not expecting that, but I do expect like 25-ish. And at 4,400, I'll take it all day.
So we do view the game a little bit differently because if the Lakers have both AD and LeBron, I think they could easily roll in this game. But that's one of the things I don't mind about Burks versus like an Al Horford or a Tobias Harris. If this game is not competitive, I think Burks still gets plenty of time on the court. Why? He's still a newer piece to the Philadelphia 76ers. They don't exactly have a lot of other options to go to as far as an actual, pseudo point guard to run the team. So I think he's relatively game script proof, which I like. Like if you're trying to pay up to Tobias Harris and Al Horford and this Philly team that's not very good on the road and doesn't have any other good players, I mean, this game could be over early. Those guys are not going to get their time. You think Al Horford is going to be out there if there's a 25-point discrepancy in the fourth quarter? No. But I think Burks could be.
I agree, but I will just say, hold on a second, because you just said that about the Denver game. This game, you could say that about a lot of games. Like, I actually think that Horford and Harris are in play. Now, Burks is more in play and safer because of what you said, but you got to be careful if you predict blowouts like all over. You know what I mean?
Well, of course. But that's kind of our job, is to come on here and people about what opinions are, what we think could potentially happen. Like, I'm necessarily saying it's going to happen, but it's a really bad road team, in LA, missing their best two players by a distant margin. And then they got the other guys. So if the game is a little bit lopsided, Harris and Horford are the first two guys chilling on the bench.
Sure, but you look at a game like last night, Utah at Cleveland. Cleveland was very shorthanded. The game ended up being like a 13-point discrepancy, yet 4 or 5 Cleveland guys hit value because they were so shorthanded and someone had to eat the minutes. I could see a very similar type situation happening here.
Yeah, but that's every game ever. You know what I mean? Like, every game can work out any single way. We talked about Minnesota and Milwaukee on New Year's Day. Nobody expected that to be a game, and it was a very, very good game. Just saying this game has a good chance to not be competitive. Not saying it won't be, but it's better odds at this game not being competitive than other games that look like they are going to be competitive.
Let's take a step back. What do you mean that's any game ever? Like, Utah, Cleveland had a similar spread last night. Utah ended up covering the spread, winning by 13 or 14. Cleveland was in similar spot as Philly in that they're shorthanded. Some guys are too cheap. And even though Cleveland lost pretty handily, a bunch of them put up value. So what do you mean that could happen any game?
Every game that's ever played in the history of sports could be a blowout or it can be competitive. True?
Of course.
Okay, that's all that I said. Any game ever could be competitive or be a blowout, but it's our job to kind of come on here and say what we think is more or less likely to happen. And that game is more likely to be lopsided than some other games that we might take a look at. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, no doubt about that. I mean, it's a 13-point spread for a reason. I could easily see Philly getting crushed here. I also don't know what's going to happen with Davis, which makes Philly more in play if he doesn't play.
I would agree. I have absolutely no idea. It would make sense for the Lakers if he actually really is hurt. Like, you don't really know this time of the year. With the NBA making these, like, they fined Minnesota for not playing Russell, I think it was, right? Russell?
Yeah.
Okay, so, like, teams are, you're getting a little bit of deceptiveness, right? Oh, LeBron's got a groin injury. Does he? I don't know if he does or not. You got to lie about it a little bit. And so it's hard to tell this time of the year. People just have to be slimy or do what they have to do not to get stupid fines and stuff like that. We have I have no idea how healthy Anthony Davis is.
I agree. Part of me feels like if Embiid and Simmons were playing, he would play. But
for sure,
he doesn't need to play in this game because, like, even if this game is a blowout, which could obviously happen, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Or even if Philly finds a way to keep it close, the Lakers will win this game no matter what.
I really struggle. I mean, the only way I see the Lakers losing is if LeBron and AD are out, and we have no reason to believe that's going to happen.
If they're both out, sure. But if just LeBron plays, I mean, I think that they'll win this game because it's LeBron.
Yeah, I saw something on social media earlier. It was so you're telling me LeBron traded
Yes,
Ingram, Lonzo Ball, and Hart for AD. AD doesn't play, and LeBron still wins the game all by himself. Cold-blooded.
that was cold blooded, and he was really good that game too.
I was hanging out with some buddies last night. We actually went to play basketball. We got to talk about it for a little while, and one of my buddies brought up the Harden Giannis beef, and I said to me, like the coolest part right now about the NBA is for the first time in forever. Not only is there an argument who the best team is, Milwaukee's got the best regular season record, but until you win a chip, you're no lock or anything like that. You can't just be like the undisputed best team in the NBA by any question. But also, we don't know who the best player in the NBA is right now. There are really good arguments. It's still LeBron. It could be Kawhi. It could be Giannis. There are guys like Harden who deserve to be mentioned within the conversation. It's really fun this way because it's been the Warriors for 5 straight years, and LeBron's been the best player in the NBA for whatever, 10, 11, 12 years up until the fact it's become an argument. This is a lot of fun.
It is, but for me, and maybe this is just me, like the best player in the best player in the NBA in the regular season is Giannis. He's like the highest PER ever. His team is the best team in the league by a good amount. He is the best player in the regular season. LeBron is the best player in the playoffs. That could change, if he loses, if Giannis wins a title. That's how I look at it. And then Kawhi is like, yeah, he's just not there. I don't look at Kawhi nearly the same as I do LeBron. And I think, a part of the reason that he won last year, I was thinking about, what we've talked about this a bunch, and this isn't trying to take anything away from Kawhi, although it kind of is. But that Spurs title was like 7 years ago. He wasn't even the best player on his team going into that series. And then he did win it last year, and I'll give him props for that. But Toronto's really good still, and he beat a hurt Golden State team. So, give me LeBron over Kawhi. And I think if they match up in the playoffs, I like the Lakers, just because of that. Give me LeBron. And if that changes, then maybe I'll change my mind.
You talked about the Rockets being your dark horse with what they're doing right now to take out one of the LA teams, and I don't disagree at that point at all. But ultimately, I still think the best bet is we're going to see Clippers-Lakers.
Well,
I think that's going to be a knockdown, drag-them-out series. I am as excited to watch that one. It has been a long time, other than like the Rockets from 2 years ago when they gave Golden State a real run for their money, where you can look at that like, man, like we really don't know who the best team is. This is fun. This is exciting. The Golden State Warriors kind of ruined the NBA for about 5 years, with the exception of LeBron's amazing comeback. Like they were just so much better. I love where the NBA is right now. I'm so excited for the playoffs.
Doesn't it also make you appreciate, and I think these guys don't get enough credit, how good Curry and Clay and even Draymond is on that team, because they ran the NBA even with all these other players around. You know what I mean?
Definitely. So I love what their NBA is at right now. I know you're super excited for baseball season, which is only a couple of weeks away, but this to me is like the crunch time of the NBA. You're starting to see guys, kind of getting ready for the playoffs, resting, taking a little time off here and there and stuff like that. This is just, I'm so pumped for the playoffs this year. I mean, there's so many teams in play. Obviously, I think you have to look at Milwaukee and the two LA teams as the favorites, but, you mentioned Houston. I don't think it's crazy to think Boston gets hot or something like that. This is fun.
I agree with you, though. I don't think Houston can get by the LA teams just because they're not good enough around Harden and Westbrook. And as good as Harden and Westbrook are, AD and LeBron is better. It just is better. It's not even a question in my mind. And then, Paul George and Kawhi is similar, but in my opinion, probably slight edge Clippers. But then they have a much better team around them. And as far as the rest of the regular season goes, yeah, I'm excited for the playoffs too, because it's going to be a good playoffs in my opinion. But also, I'm liking how the Cavs are playing as the season concludes. Guys like Kevin Porter, who we've talked about a lot, and Colin Sexton are impressing me. It doesn't mean anything, but that's what you want to see.
For sure. And going back to the Clippers, they've been so injured all season.
Yes.
That with all the additions that they made, Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson are no scrubs. That is a deep, good team right there. I really fear the Clippers. If I would be any team, that's a team that I'd really be scared to play.
I agree, and they're good. But why, and their role players are good, but I don't think they're that much better than the Lakers. I don't. Guys like Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson,
Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell.
They're good. They're good. Give me LeBron and AD. Like I don't know. I'm buying into AD also with LeBron. He looks like he's, we talk about how many top 5 players are there. There can only be 5. When he's playing his best, and he's played some of his best this year, especially defensively, if they go far, I think it's going to have to do with how good AD plays, how well he plays.
Yeah, you know what LeBron's bringing in the playoffs. AD has been a very weak leader throughout the early portion of his career. But again, we also have, like, it's not that early. I think, what is this, his 7th year in the NBA?
Something like that, yeah. But to your other point, like, it's been the Warriors and that's it. So he hasn't won anything. Go ahead.
I was just saying, sure, but like, he has one playoff series win. I'm not saying he needed to win a title. Like, he won one playoff series, and honestly, like, Drew Holiday was probably the best player in that series.
You're right. He has definitely like underperformed than his, that he should have been able to take New Orleans farther as the best player on his own team. No doubt about it.
People sit around, and there's a lot of people probably who think Anthony Davis is better than James Harden. But Harden, he's come up small a lot in the playoffs, but they got wins. They have series wins. They're always in the playoffs. AD makes the playoffs every other year and has one series win. So if you're as great as some people talk about him, I got to see a little bit more from you. Now, I think ultimately LeBron's going to be like the best thing that happened to Anthony Davis' career. Mentor, teach him how to lead, very similar to what Dwayne Wade did to LeBron James, taught him how to be a winner and not just a freak athlete with, tons of skill. So I think this will be great for him. I still got to see it once before I put him in my top 5.
Agreed.
So it just gets me absolutely fired up to watch the NBA playoffs. Like, we kind of know what's what at this point. Like, the bottom seeds, like whoever, squeezes into the 8th seed in the West ain't doing shit anyways. Like, I just want this to start right now. I want to get past the first round of the playoffs and into the second round and watch some of these knockdown, drag them out battles. I am absolutely gassed, if you can't tell, for the NBA playoffs this year.
I'm gassed, but like you said, for the second round, especially out east. Like,
yeah.
In the West, there are going to be some good first-round series.
Yes, but I do think we both believe, like, both LA teams, Houston, like, I like the top 4 seeds in the West. Again, whoever plays Utah, that would probably be a good series.
Like, I think you're probably going to see either Houston or Denver versus Utah. And
should be a good series.
Yeah, like, Denver and Houston are both better than Utah, but if Utah's like playing their best, they could easily win. I mean, Utah beat, OKC or whatever a couple years in a row. Like, Utah's been there. I like Utah. They've gone through a couple like droughts this year where they've been awful, but when they're playing their best, they're good.
No disagreement. So I am. You can tell, like, I'm getting super excited for this one.
One team out west that looks like they're fading a little bit, Dallas.
Yeah, they're also missing guys daily. Porzingis sits out every 3rd game or whatever it is. Luka's missing time. I'm curious to watch how Dallas plays in the playoffs this year.
Agreed. I'm not going to be surprised if Dallas loses in the first round, like, at all.
Well, I would expect them to lose in the first round because they're going to be playing against, like, Denver or the Clippers or whatever it might be. But I'm curious to see how they play. And I'm curious to see how OKC plays against somebody. Like, OKC could, give a challenge to a Houston or a Clippers or a Nuggets or something like that. Not saying they'll beat them, but make them work for it, right?
I could see Dallas getting swept with how they're playing right now.
Absolutely. I could too. Although KP is starting to look more and more like the unicorn. So if Luka and Porzingis go in super healthy, I mean, that's 2 really good players. And if Hardaway's hitting his 3-pointers and Curry's hitting some 3-pointers, like, maybe. We'll see. I just feel like they haven't played a lot of games together recently.
Okay, that's another reason why I like the Lakers out west. Thank you for pulling this up. Right now, like, the Clippers, if this playoff started today, would be playing OKC in the first round. And then it doesn't even matter. OKC in the first round, which I think will get a game or 2 against the Clippers. The 8th seed, Memphis, like, I think they're going to get swept. Don't you?
5 games, 4 games. It doesn't really matter. One of those 2, right?
Like, less stress for the Lakers than I think OKC
Absolutely.
is, like, for sure. Now, in the second round, it's more or less the same. I don't think Houston and Denver are really that much different in terms of, like, how competitive they are. Do you agree?
I mean, I think the 2 seed, okay, I take that back. I think the both LA teams are ahead above all the other teams. But then Denver, Houston, and Utah, to me, are birds of a feather. And OKC, I think, is a great story. And I think they win a game or 2 in the first round of the playoffs. I just can't see them winning a series. Ultimately, they're just not good enough.
The best thing for Houston, man, if Houston could get up to that 3 seed, because, like, they don't want to face Utah in the first round. Because I think Utah could beat Houston, but they won't beat the Clippers, you know?
Yeah, I can't picture anybody beating the Clippers, but maybe the Lakers. And I still think if these two teams matched up right now, and I had to put money on it, I would bet on the Clippers. They just when they're all healthy and playing together, that's a good basketball team.
It is, but like something, I mean, they've only done it for 6 or 7 times this year. Now, they do seem to just like coast, and then when they want to turn it on, they look really good.
Definitely. And then they get a nice warm-up series in the first round, and they come into round 2 really hitting on all cylinders if they're going up against Houston, Denver, or whatever it might be. Man, I was excited when we started talking. All this talk, I'm getting really freaking pumped.
And you're right about their secondary pieces, because like Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson, like they don't really do much for me, but like Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams just hits different coming off the bench. You know what I mean? That's a different type feeling. Those guys are good.
Yeah, the Lakers, after you get past AD and LeBron, I do not like the rest of their cast. Kuzma has not had a great year. I like JaVale McGee and I like Dwight Howard, but
I like their guys as defenders and guys that know their roles. Like Avery Bradley isn't going to do anything special, but he's a solid defender. Same with like Danny Green. Now the Clippers definitely have better scorers, better offensive players, better names. But like I think it's like you said, a drag them out type series.
Sure, and I think that's where the Clippers have that depth where it's like, okay, do I need Beverly, Lou Williams? Is Reggie Jackson all of a sudden on fire from 3 that game? Running back there, you got Montrezl Harrell. It's just a pretty deep team. Now you move back up to the East though, and Milwaukee's got the same benefit as LA. Like they're going to get a cakewalk in the first round, whereas you do not want to be the 3 seed right here and have to take on Philly. As bad as Philly has been at moments this year, they're 28-2 at home. They are a terrible road team. That is just pathetic. But at home, I mean, that's they can find a way to win 1 on the road. Like you don't want to be Boston and have to take them on. You want to get up to that 2 seed to take on the Magic.
Yeah, how about Miami, man? Like another good win for them last night. They look good doing so. I mean, they're good.
Yeah, Milwaukee shot like 12% from 3-point range, and they shot close to 50. They just absolutely outskilled them last night. I didn't get to watch the whole game, but they just looked like the better team pretty much from the get-go on that one. So I actually want the Bucks to lose a couple more games because I don't want anybody to have to care or worry about the 70 wins. Like lose a couple more. I know that's weird to say, but I don't even want to have to worry about that the last week of the season.
Is Miami 2-0 against Milwaukee this year?
Yep, they won the second game of the year. Milwaukee was up by like 20-some. That was with no Jimmy Butler. And then Milwaukee did what they did a lot, the first 10 games of the year. Got a big lead and let teams back into it, started coasting. And Miami won that game. They played an excellent game throughout the second half and overtime.
I think Miami is right on the Boston-Toronto level. I do. I mean, Butler and Bam is a really good 1-2. They've got other pieces around them that know their role. I think Miami is a dark horse to come out. I don't expect it, but I think they are.
Well, let's just take the Bucks out of there for a second, just because their record is so much better.
Yes.
Let's not worry about them. But let's talk about Toronto, Boston, Miami, Indiana, and Philly. You tell me there's 10 seconds left and I need a bucket or somebody to get to line. There's nobody I would rather have than Jimmy Butler out of all those teams.
I agree with that. Philly's just been so disappointing. It's hard to put them anywhere close up there. Miami, plus, they've got other guys that are good. Dragic is good.
Dragic, Bam. Yeah, Dragic is good. I think people forget how good he is.
He's real good. He's not like, going to be the second best player on a championship team, but that's not what he is here. And Miami's not a championship team, but they're a dark horse for sure.
Coach Spo has more playoff experience than any of these other coaches.
I give them about the same chance of coming out the East as I do Houston coming out of the West.
Well, what do you think about this? So if you look at the East right now, I think Milwaukee's about a 50-50 to come out of the East. And then I give the Raptors, Celtics, Heat, and 76ers all 10 to 15% chance to be that team.
100% agree.
I don't think the Pacers can, though. Again, we've talked about that a lot. I love what Indiana does. I just don't think they're good enough to come out of the East.
They got to make a move, like a 2 or 3 for 1.
Something like that, yeah. So anyway, we went a little off topic today, but we were talking NBA, so I'm sure a lot of you guys have opinions out there. I'm still looking for that Bucks LA finals. I think is where we're going to end up. But again, if it's Boston, Houston, I'm not flabbergasted by that, which makes it really, really excited.
Same, although I don't. I don't know. Boston, of course, I'm not going to be surprised, but Boston wouldn't be like my favorite of all those other teams. I think right now it might be Miami.
I can
Now,
see that.
I'm a
But
prisoner.
Miami, a week ago, had lost a bunch of games in a row. So it's like always like all these teams like have taken turns for me all season long being the second best team
And
between
like
Toronto, Boston, and Miami, and Philly.
never done anything in the playoffs. Like I'm not saying he couldn't, but he's never done anything. I mean, I don't even know if he's won a playoff series. Now, I'm not like saying that he should have, but it's not, he hasn't. That's all I'll say.
Ooh, Butler?
Yeah. Has he won a playoff series
Yeah, I know with the
with the
Bulls, they won
Bulls?
a couple. Yep.
Okay.
And they won playoff series last year with Philly. They beat the Nets, which again
Oh,
is not
yeah,
impressive. But Butler has his moments in the playoffs. Like Coach Brown called him, he's the adult in the room.
for sure.
He's not a guy that I worry about. If Miami doesn't win a series or two, I don't think it's Jimmy Butler's fault. I just think that they have a very young supporting cast around him. Am I surprised if Nunn and Hero and Bam come up smaller than normal? No, not yet. They're all of what, a combined 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Bam seems like a veteran, but Bam's all of what, 22 at the most?
I would say he's like 22, but I'm not sure.
He's young. Are you going to look it up right now? I think he's 22, but I could be wrong.
I'm looking it up right now. Bam Adebayo is 22 years old.
Okay. So like Dragic and Butler have plenty of experience within the NBA, but that's a really young supporting cast around them. So I think they grow next year. I think Miami's a team to be reckoned for. And imagine if they get like a good free agent acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they also got Crowder and Iguodala. There are some veteran leaders on the team.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm just looking at Jimmy Butler's playoff numbers, and they're solid. I mean, they're actually really good. 20 points, 6.7 boards, 6 assists, which is really good. He's made it out of the first round a couple of times, like you said, with the Bulls and then with the Sixers last year.
Yeah,
So,
nothing crazy special though.
no, nothing crazy. I forgot about the Sixers because it wasn't like his team,
No, it was a collective of him, Simmons, and Embiid.
It's hard to, like you just talked about, like with Dallas, for instance, when you're one of those lower seeds, it's hard to win in the playoffs because the better teams win normally. So, like when he played with Minnesota a couple of years ago and they made the playoffs and they were good that year, if you remember, but he
Yep.
got hurt for a while and they tailed and then he came back and they barely made the playoffs. Like you didn't expect them to win a playoff series that year because they were the 8 seed.
Yeah, well, that's exactly like you said with Dallas. Like I like Luka and KP, but I
Yes,
don't expect them to beat the Clippers or the Nuggets or the Rockets.
exactly. Like that's just what it is, especially the Clippers or Lakers, but for sure.
Yeah, I don't expect them to beat any of those teams up top. I do think that for me, like the top four in the West are better than the bottom four by a decent margin. I like the Jazz and I like the
Yes.
Thunder, but I like the top four teams more, and that's why they have better records.
And that's why it's funny. Like the regular season, like I always say, it doesn't matter like a ton, and it obviously like matters less, it seems, than it used to, but it still matters a lot because you see like the dust settles where it will settle. And Dallas is the 7th seed for a reason. Like they're good, but they're not as good as the top 4 seeds.
Yeah, and maybe if Luka didn't miss as many games as he had and KP didn't miss as many
But
games as he had, maybe they would be the 3 seed. I don't know.
don't you feel like Luka's almost like hitting a little bit of a tail? Like,
Yeah.
like as the season winds down, he's hitting a little bit of a, it's not uncommon for young guys to suffer that. It's a long season. I don't know. Maybe that's in my mind.
Mentally and physically, it's a very, very long season. He is a very young guy. I know he has a lot more professional level experience than most guys his age, but he is still a very, very young man.
Very young man. And I don't know this as a fact, but I'm pretty sure like the NBA season is longer than those seasons. The NBA season
Yep.
is long. It's a grind, a ton of I mean, it just is. So it's not surprising at all. Now he could obviously turn it on, but like we're not seeing the 60 to 70 point games every single day. Now maybe also his hand is still hurt. I have no idea.
Well, that mental grind and this where like I know there's a lot of LeBron haters out there. I've never understood it
I don't get
myself, but there's a lot of LeBron haters out there. You got to just throw it up there to the appreciation for a guy who rarely misses games and has had to play on average 25% longer seasons for as long as we can remember, and just brings it every single night like that. Like the mental fortitude that takes is truly impressive.
especially being from Cleveland and watching a lot of his games, man, it's something that, I mean, we talk about it a lot. A lot of these guys don't do that. And I tell everyone who's like a fringe NBA fan, like, watch Giannis, because that's who you want to watch. He plays hard to every second. Like, and that's how LeBron used to be too. I mean, so, and I understand why LeBron can't be like that anymore because he's old, but Giannis is awesome to watch because they're the same type of stuff you're talking about with LeBron.
Right. And that Giannis is that guy right now. But like the guy who was, for me, who just always brings it to is Westbrook. And that's why I've always loved watching him play. Are there holes in his game? Yeah. He's a point guard that's small. And again, he had to become a good passer. He's not a great outside shooter. But I have to respect it. Every single possession, he brings it as hard as he can.
He's awesome. He's agreed. He's, like you said, a mini Giannis. He is not the guy, though, in my opinion, like you just said with Butler, and he took the last shot last night. I don't want him taking the last shot. Like, unless he can get to the rim, I do not want him taking the last shot. Now, is that a knock against him? Yes, but that's probably the only knock against him. I mean, he is awesome. He'll carry your team to 50 regular season wins, even as the best player, close to it. And, you're going to be real competitive in the playoffs. He's not like the LeBron level, but he's that next level below it.
So that brings up an interesting question to me, because I think if you interviewed 100 like good NBA fans, people who actually knew the game, and asked them who they'd rather have on their team, Anthony Davis or Russell Westbrook, I think Anthony Davis would win by a decent margin. But what have we seen out of these two players over the last couple of years that makes you think that Anthony Davis will have more than Russell Westbrook?
It's a good question. I will say that I think Anthony Davis still has room for growth, where I'm not sure that Westbrook.
Sure. Well, I would agree. Russell Westbrook's over 30 years old. I don't think he's getting any better.
You're right. I mean, I don't disagree with your point at all. I do think that Davis is more skilled than Westbrook probably, but like you said, Westbrook brings it all the time. Like, I mean, he gets to the hole at will. What I'll say about Westbrook, and, I don't know if this is true or not, but in the playoffs, he's never really done anything. He seems to, destroy, 20 to 25 of the teams in the NBA. But really tough matchups, like you talked about with the Clippers, that are going to stop him from getting to the paint. Like, he struggles in those type of matchups.
He's got some Peyton Manning in him, in the essence that, like, he brings it so hard in the regular season, every single game, that when you get to the playoffs and you want him to elevate his game, I've always argued this about Peyton. Like, I don't think he has any room to elevate, because he brought it so hard on every possession, whereas some other athletes coast in the regular season, and then in crunch time, they bring their game to a whole new level. I just don't know that they have another level to go to. It's that they play the best they can throughout the season. There's just no room for growth.
Yeah, you're right about that. And you are right. People still view Anthony Davis that high, although not as high as like they used to. Like a couple of years ago, those polls.
It depends who you ask.
True, but a lot of those polls, like which player would you want to build around, and it would be him over Giannis. Now, it would also be like Karl Anthony Towns, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. But Giannis has clearly emerged as the guy there.
Yep, I love having these discussions, because we've been going back and forth on the Bradley Beal or Chris Middleton one, and like, looking at stats versus looking at helping your team win, like they're just two different ways and two different metrics. You can't really put a physical number on something like that.
No, and speaking of like Karl Anthony Towns, like you're not a fan to begin with, but I mean, he's really like fallen in terms of like his ranking in the league. Don't you agree?
Yes. Because I don't watch a ton of college ball, I was never as big on him as some other people that watched him, when he was real young. When I watch him play, I don't see a guy that really helps his team win. He puts up a lot of numbers. You watch him at times, you're like, man, this guy can absolutely ball. But I mean, he has done nothing for the Timberwolves to turn them into winners.
I think it's the defense, because offensively he's so skilled. But and I was reading an article about this. The Timberwolves with him on the court were one of the worst defenses of all time. Without him on the court, they were like above average this year. So that says a lot. And defense is a lot about effort. I just think that he is not in the right culture, and maybe it's because it's his culture.
Could be. Again, I don't know him. You don't know him. I don't know the culture. I'm not actually physically there. I used to live in Minneapolis, but that gives me absolutely zero insight into the situation whatsoever. You really, really don't know. Is it his fault? Is it the culture? Is it his culture? It's tough to say, but I've watched enough of him to think like, you're right. He doesn't bring it. I was bringing up Jabari Parker yesterday on Twitter. When he was not re-signed by Milwaukee, there was people around here who were just pissed, like, oh, he's so good. And I'm like, he's not. You know, when you're quoted as saying, I'm paid to put the ball in the basket, not play defense, that is a seriously cultural problem. Now he's sitting in Sacramento for a team that's not in the playoffs, probably not going to make the playoffs. And he's a DNP on a nightly basis.
Yeah, it's pathetic. All right, we'll end it on this because I've been meaning to ask you this. I think I know your answer. If you had to pick, your team, who would you rather have, Luka or Zion?
You cut out for a second.
Luka or Zion?
Luka.
I figured you'd say Luka, and I say Luka too, although it is a question. That's all I'll say.
The question, like, Zion is incredible as far as like just his, freak physicalness and everything like that. I have no guarantee that he's going to develop into a guy that you can go to get a bucket down the stretch. We've talked about it. He's not a great rebounder for a guy his size yet. That could come.
Last night, for instance, or 2 nights ago, it's rare to see this. Like Bogdanovich had a line earlier like this, but he had 35 real points, and he had like 39 DK points. He may have touched 40. He had like 6 rebounds and a bunch of turnovers, and that was it.
So again, he's super young though. Like, right? Like, I don't want to judge the guy based on 14 NBA games, but Luka needs to give that defensive effort that we have not seen from him yet. And is he going to be willing to buy in? Is he physical enough to play defense? I was watching Max and Stephen A talk about Giannis and Harden the other day. And Max was talking about how, people around the league just don't respect Harden as much. And he goes, one of the reasons is because, like, they're not lying. Like, he's a better defender than he gets credit for, but you will attack him. And he goes, his knock on Giannis was like, come on, man. Like, yeah, it'd be easy if I was 7 feet tall and built like a brick house to play defense, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Is Luka athletic enough? I don't know.
Yeah, it's always a good question. But that is one thing about Giannis that, people who argue against him always seem to leave out is how good he is defensively.
Yeah, he's arguably the best player in the league defensively because he's a physical freak. He can guard 6 foot, fast guards. He can, basically defend centers and things like that. But also, like, go back and look at the pictures from Giannis from 5 years ago. You want to say, like, he didn't have to develop skill. Well, he had to turn himself into a freak because he used to be skinnier than Kevin Durant.
Exactly. If you watched when he got into it with Harden and Larry Sanders, like, he is rail thin in that picture.
Imagine if Kevin Durant put on that kind of muscle. He might go down as the guy better than Jordan.
Yeah. I don't know. Zion, for me right now, it has been impressive what he's done in his first 14 games. But he seems, at least right now, like he can get his numbers. And like his numbers, he can just get them because he's just as freakish of athletes that these guys are. He's one of those guys that's like a freak amongst freaks. But I don't think he's doing a ton to like help New Orleans win right now.
Yeah, I still think the Pelicans could sneak into that A seed right there. I like what their team has going forward, but I don't know. I mean, they still have Brandon Ingram's the guy getting buckets when you need him.
I like their team going forward a lot, though. We've talked about there's a bunch of good teams in the West. The Sacramentos, we like their core. Phoenix, we like their core. Give me New Orleans over those teams now. I might take New Orleans and Memphis is close for me. I like what New Orleans has going with Zion, Ingram. They've got role players. I like their squad.
Definitely. All right. This is going on for a long time. I'm sure most of you guys aren't still here, but side tangent, whatever it might be. Thanks for watching, and we will see you guys a little bit later for some overlay discussion.
Thanks, guys.